Welcome back to Agree to Disagree, a podcast that shows it's okay to have conversations about topics we don't agree on and still be friends. My name is Josh. This is Dallas. Thanks for joining us.
On today's episode, we'd like to discuss the border wall, immigration reform, DACA, and all things associated with it. So I guess we'll just start right off the bat with the controversial topic of the border wall. How do you feel about the border wall, Josh?
I think it's really important, to stop the flow of illegal immigration. There's ports of entry for a reason in our country, and people need to use those spots. And I think there should be more places for people to come into the country, more ports of entry. But on the wall, I think it's so important to have an actual physical wall, a big, sturdy wall that is very difficult to get over. Because, I mean, I've seen a documentary on immigration. Actually, I think it was about the cartels. And there was a cartel member who actually said they use spots that don't have any fencing or walls because it's the easiest way to go. And if they were to build a wall, it would make it a lot more difficult for them to get through. You know, I don't necessarily think that we're ever going to stop illegal immigration. People are always going to try to come into the country illegally. That's just the way it is. But with a wall, we would actually be able to slow that down and maybe funnel them, into specific spots where it's easier to catch them. And that would also make it safer for the Border Patrol agents who are down there and have to deal with that.
Well, I have several questions with that, but I guess the first one I'd start off with is just the cost of it. From what I've read, they estimate it would cost anywhere from $21 to $70 billion to build. And that's not even to maintenance, that's just to build. $20 to $71 billion. And then I think it's at $150 million a year to keep it maintenance. And for me, I ask, what better places could that money be served? If we look at the true problems in our country, if we look at our education system, I feel like we're constantly finding other places to spend this money. We're putting it towards, our military force or towards a wall, and then I have other questions about the wall. One is it going to work? Because, they're already building tunnels under there, to come here. And sometimes I feel like when you create restrictions like this or laws like this, it actually inadvertently creates crime. The cartel, these trafficking, they are in place because of how flawed our immigration system is to begin with. That's just a basis. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the cost of it.
Well, for me, I feel that the cost would be offset because the amount of money that's spent on illegal immigrants in this country every year is also extremely high. I don't know the actual numbers, but I know it's very, very high.
Now, when you're talking about costs, are you talking about like the deportation costs? Are you talking about like public funding? Are you talking about?
I'm talking about they get welfare. I'm talking about they get these government
benefits, right?
Yes.
And that's what I heard a lot of people talk about too. When I discuss this with people, they talk about, how much of a drain they are on the taxpayers of America. And for me, that brings up, are we arguing about immigration, or are we just talking about how flawed the welfare and those systems are? Because there's plenty of American-born people that are a drain on those taxpayer
100%.
dollars.
I agree. Yeah.
So are we looking at something? Are we pointing the finger at something else when it's truly, an American-born problem?
Sure. I agree with that. But I think that welfare needs to be reformed, and I've thought that for a long time. But I also think that
the illegal immigration contributes to that?
A little. Definitely a portion. And then, you got deportation costs, and then not to mention the criminals that come in. And I don't mind people coming into the country. But there's ways to go about that. Because
legal ways of immigration.
Right.
People would say that system is flawed too.
It is, very, and I think that we need to reform that. I think that that's one thing that needs to happen along with a border wall to help our immigration. It needs to be reformed, and it needs to be won't say necessarily easier for people to.
Well, I would
to
think
get
it
through
should be
because I
easier
think
for
it should
working
be-
people.
right?
People that want to contribute and help, you know?
Yep. And
So-
because I know doctors, because I used to work at the hospital, and I worked with quite a few doctors who, I mean, it's been 10 years that they've been trying to get their green card, and that's just.
Well, and
I mean, they're such a benefit to our society. I don't understand why it takes them so long. And for other people, you know, there's a guy that I work with at the construction company that I work for, and he's from China. And the hardest worker I've ever met in my life. And I just don't see people like that. Their process should, excuse me, be expedited and faster because they're a benefit to the society. And now I don't think that people who aren't a benefit to the society shouldn't be able to come here, you know, because this is the land of opportunity.
Well, and you know, I think that what's lost in this discussion often is how crucial immigration was to our country's birth.
Yeah.
And not only was, but still is. You know, so first off, you know, our country was born on immigration. Bring us, you're tired, you're hungry, you're weak.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact saying, you know. But many people's great-grandfathers, many successful people in this country, many of them are immigrants. And also in today's society, people don't realize our hospitals, our universities, the people that are working for them or that are doctors that are getting these degrees and these scholarships, the majority of them are coming from other countries because Americans, our system is not, you know, we're not the smartest people, you know. So we like to think, oh, these immigrants are coming here and are stealing our jobs and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's bogus.
You know, I think if you were to
Yeah.
take out the immigration or the people that have come from the, you know, we wouldn't function near to the level that we do.
Yeah. When people come at me with that argument that, you know, illegal immigrants are taking our jobs and stuff, there's more jobs in the United States currently than there is skilled workers to fill those jobs.
Yeah, if you want a job, you can have a job. You know,
Yeah.
I've never gone without work. You
Right,
know?
same here.
If you
I've
want
always
a job,
had a
you
job.
can get a job.
Yep.
It's baloney, you know.
Yep, agreed.
And another problem that I see with this border wall or this immigration topic now, and I think the social media or regular media is a lot to blame, is there's been an outburst of just illogical racist behavior. You know, when you look at the videos of the people berating Mexicans in a park or people for, you know, for different things, I think that this discussion, when not looked at intelligently and not researched, it leads to really, you know, petty thoughts, hurt, you know.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think anybody who brings race into it is just a terrible person to begin with, because it has nothing to do with if they're Mexican, if they're Indian, if they're it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's laws in place for a reason, and they need to be followed. Until and if people don't like the way the law is, then they need to go to their congressman and they need to change it. They can't.
Well,
you
it's
know,
not like that'll really work. I mean,
no, but you get petitioned. I mean, that's how it starts. You get petitions. You go to your congressman. You talk to him. You go to your state rep. And that's how it starts. You get petitions, you get people to sign them, and that's how you get these laws changed. I mean, you have to be active and actually do something to change it. You can't just bitch about it.
right, like we are.
Well, I think we're doing something, you know.
No, you know, and with the border wall, you know, I think of where could that money go? You know, what other places could that money go? You know, if it was going into fixing the legal immigration like we're talking about.
But I still think that you're gonna have to have
A physical wall?
because when you don't, you invite people to come in illegally because they just think, oh well, it's easy, and as soon as we get over there, I know that we can get benefits and we can work under the table, and you know.
I have two questions to that. One is, name something that our federal government has been in charge of that has been successful, or, you know, we're putting the most inept group of people in charge of building a $70 billion wall that stretches, 9,000 miles or however, I mean, I think it's about 1,800, I don't know the
Yeah, I
exact
have no
distance.
idea how many.
But, you know, for me, it's just another way for the bureaucratic department of our country to funnel more taxpayers' dollars into their wallets. You know, everything is always worded, you know, we're going to give this the school taxes, and it's always, you know, $75 for the politician and $25 for whatever project that it's working on. And I think it's just another way of doing that. And secondly, my question is, you know, do you really think that it's to work under the table or to get government benefits is the main reason why these
No,
people
I think
are
they're
coming over
coming here because they want a better life.
Okay, and so what is the matter with what's so wrong with where they live? You know,
Well, it's shit. I mean, you know, like especially in Mexico, you got the cartels, and that Mexico is just crazy. I mean, they put out a the United States put out a travel advisory for people going to Mexico.
well, see, that brought me to something that you said yesterday, and I asked this specifically or last week when we were discussing when we touched on the war topic, and we touched on going to these places. You said, if there's a group of people that need our help and we are capable of helping them, that we have an obligation to help them.
Yeah.
So I asked, what's the difference? You know, why are we over in Iraq with guns and tanks
not
and all this
down
stuff?
in Mexico?
You know, if we're truly trying to help people, does it always have to be helped through military conflict?
Sure.
You know, why aren't we? You know, think of the $71 billion that we're spending. Could we not, you know, build? You know, if we're spending money either way, why not help our neighbor grow to where they don't need to run across our fence? You know, maybe it's because they don't have the natural resources we need. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I definitely. It's tricky. I mean, I think we should help them, but
See,
what do you do whenever
think,
all of the government officials down there are corrupt and in the pockets of the cartels? I mean, any resource you give them.
Some might argue that Americans are the ones our government is the ones who are responsible for putting these puppet politicians in place because they've allowed us to take things like the Panama Canal, these different things, you know. So, but
the Obama administration was caught selling guns.
Oh yeah,
to the cartel.
They want the crime. You know, that's what people forget. Laws are created to create crime.
Mm-hmm.
That's my stance.
But I mean, as far as America goes, I think that we need to do all we can to keep that shit down there. I mean,
well, see, and for me, so there's two. One is that we use an imaginary line or lines. You know, our nation, Americans, this is our family, so to speak. You know, and it allows us to treat other people from different families with a screw you. You know, I mean, these Mexican families or these different South American families that are coming over, that their kids are dying, and I mean, they're still people. You know, imagine if your mom and somebody else lived down in Mexico. You know, somehow they were down there and they couldn't make it up.
It'd be terrible.
You know? I mean, they're still people.
Yeah.
You know, just because they're not American,
Yeah.
we don't feel the same sympathy towards them.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and I do. That's why I think that we need to fix our immigration system. That way it makes it to where these people can come over here, and they don't have to wait 20 years to get to get their visa. There has to be a better way to vet these people and to get them through the process, other than just letting them in without any documentation or anything.
Well, do you know how many countries have a physical border wall between them?
A bunch.
I mean, can you name some of them?
Canada.
A physical border that goes all the length of Canada?
I don't know about, but I know they have a wall. France.
Because the ones I looked up were like North and South Korea. They were
North
Egypt
Korea.
and the Gaza Strip, or Israel
and the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, Gaza. Yeah, you know, but it's all these war-torn areas. You know, and it's like.
Well, look at Mexico. It's war-torn.
So then, why do we have military bases all over the world where these wars going on, but not? You know, to me, it's just there's a disconnect.
Not in Mexico.
Right. You know, for everybody wants to champion the cause of patriotism across the ocean. You know, because these people need our help and we're the good guys, but. Look at the cartel, right? I mean, they're our neighbors.
I don't know why we haven't. I mean, that's my view, dude. I think that we should just get like a few SEAL teams, go down to Mexico, just wipe out the cartels, and just let them fix their shit.
But I think what we're doing is we're just looking at symptoms. Yeah,
saying
we're looking at symptoms. What has created the cartel? You know? One could say
drugs.
The cartel, the drugs, the prohibition on drugs in our country has led to the growth of the cartel.
Oh, 100% it has. And that's why I think like the legalization of marijuana is such a big deal, because that
eliminates that crime of it.
Yep. I think
I think the same
but then
thing
you
too.
get tricky. I mean, do you think all drugs should be legal?
I personally do. I think that, you know, if you want to shoot up heroin or smoke crack, as long as you're not
I
harming
kinda have
anybody
the same
physically, you're not
views.
stealing, I don't have to pay for it. I think we're all
I
adults.
kind of have the same views.
I think we're adults enough to make our own mistakes. You
Yeah.
know? As long as we're not physically harming other people, or like I said, I don't have to pay for it. You
Yeah.
know. But I mean, right now our government, in my mind, has already made the prescription versions legal, so they can be the ones
Right.
that make the profit.
Right,
But that's
exactly.
way off topic.
Yeah, but yeah, back to the.
I mean, my
immigration.
my mom made a point about this when I was talking to her about it, and she was more for the on your side of this, the pro wall and whatnot. And she asked me, she said, "Dallas, do you lock your house at night?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Why? You know, why are you putting up a barrier and locking your house?" And it's like, for me, well, you know, I want to protect my kids, and obviously, you know,
Yeah.
it kind of stumped me for a second. But then I got to thinking. I said, "That's right. I do want to lock my door, except for family. You know, I let a family come into my house if they need a place to stay.
Right.
They need to sleep on my couch. Now, one thing I wouldn't let a family member do is come inside my house and live for 4 months at a time, not work, eat all my food, crap on my floor, you know. But I think that when we look at our
But
country,
you can't let in the good without letting in the bad too.
well, but I think, you know, when we talk about our country, we use the term family as the other citizens, you know. Like when we were talking about military and stuff, we're talking about obligation to protect our family or our people, you know. Well, I think that we're letting our family sit on our couch and sleep and shit for 4 months at a time, a mooch off us, and we're trying to blame our neighbors, you know. My neighbors are still people, you know. I would think of them as family too, you know. If my neighbor needed a place to stay and work and get his back on his feet, you know.
Sure, absolutely.
So why don't we have programs that help these people get back on
I
their
agree.
feet instead of building a big wall with all this, you know?
But if you don't have the wall, then the bad's gonna come in with the good.
I mean, but we talk about the bad,
And-
like there's so much crime that's coming over here. Americans have
But there
5%.
is.
America makes up 5% of the world's population, yet we already make up 25% of the prison population. So that would suggest that we already have the bad guys here. You know, the bad guys
Right.
live in Chicago and you know, we're trying to paint them as the bad guys, but how do we already have, you know?
Well, they're not the only bad guys. I mean, you know, they're like, which that's a whole nother, you know, discussion too, is because a lot of those people are in there for nonviolent crimes,
Right,
and
right.
there shouldn't be that many people in our jails, and you know, like, yeah, that's a whole.
What I'm trying to
topic
say
for
is I think
another-
that we try to, in our media especially, or anytime they're trying to push an agenda, they want to paint this as the boogeyman. They're always the boogeyman because it's always scared. You know, we're always willing to give up our tax money or anything when we're scared. When somebody's coming for us, you
Yeah.
know, here, take our money, make us safe. And I feel like that's the case a lot of the time with this wall. You know, I'm from Phoenix. My dad owns clubs in South Phoenix, and you know, we've dealt with some really sketchy people, but the majority of the gangbangers and the people that are causing trouble are the American-born thugs. You know, the Mexicans that are coming over, for the most part, people are
Right.
people. But in my personal experience, those have been the hardest working sons of guns. You know, they're coming here because they want to be able to work and make a living. And,
Right.
and I think that if they were given the chance to do
And there's
so
definitely
legally,
more good than there is bad, but one bad, I mean,
but it,
that cancels out a lot of good.
I don't know. I think we keep looking at a symptom instead of a cause. You know, or like, I don't know.
Try to fix things so they don't have to come here to find a better life. I agree, but that's such a bigger.
Or not just that, or fix it if they are coming here. Like,
The
if it's
reason
such
the reason you treat symptoms is sometimes because the cause of the problem is too big to fix.
I mean, I'm just looking
And
at a
you just
different
have to
solution.
keep putting band-aids over it.
What if instead of rounding all these people up and taking them back over and deporting them, and then they'll come back or whatnot, what if when we rounded them up, we put them into programs where we got them jobs, we made them legal citizens? They're
Sure.
here anyways. Let's, you know, turn them into tax-paying
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
class.
Well, that's kind of what you know, Trump was wanting to do with his immigration policy, because that's kind of what DACA was, you know, for people, for kids who were already in the United States, who were brought here by their families and they've grown up in the United States. You know, it's a program for them to become citizens, and you know, Trump wanted to give all of them amnesty and let them stay here, and you know that they couldn't get bipartisan support for that, and it got squashed. But I agree with that. I think that the ones that are already here, I mean, there's no reason to send them back unless they've broke the law again, you know, if they're constantly breaking the law, or those people, they don't need to stay here. But the ones that are here, I mean, we need to help them get their visas. We need to help them find,
I think the biggest problem we talk about is like these people. It's either crime, or B, the drain on the taxpayers. You know, and I think that is the main thing. Is that needs to be reformed and fixed. You know, if there weren't these programs that people could, milk and use all the time, then
yep.
that would solve a lot. I mean, would you
Yeah.
have a problem with these people coming over near as much if you didn't feel like that they were milking off of you?
Absolutely not. I want people to come to America. That's what America is about. It's the melting pot. That's the whole point of this
But somehow we want to just say the Mexicans down there
experiment that we started 200 something years ago, because that's what America was. It's an experiment, and that's why it's like it is today. We haven't figured it out. We're winging it, basically. I mean, as a country, we're winging it. Nobody's ever done what we're doing. And, I have to say, I think we're doing a pretty damn good job. And, we have some of the best things in the world here, And, I mean, yeah, some of the shit we do isn't so great. But I think for the most part,
I grew up near the border town,
Right.
I grew up working with a lot of Mexicans, and
Yeah.
I knew a lot of illegals throughout the time.
Mhm.
I never felt threatened because somebody was an illegal alien.
Oh,
I
yeah.
never felt like I couldn't get work because there was the jobs were taken up by,
Sure. And like I said, I think those arguments are just null. They're not any good, because, like I said, there's more jobs in the United States than there is people to fill them. So that's not even a valid
So I just don't know where I get
argument.
like this huge concern, like it's just this terrible problem of these people coming over,
I don't have a problem. Like I said, I don't have a problem with them coming over. I think they just need to do it the right way, and
So then maybe I don't
and
know.
that's why I was saying, build the wall, but put in more ports of entry for these people to get in. So and make it easier for them to get make the process faster and easier for them. Get more judges, more. And whatever you need, like they need to figure out what they need.
So you don't think that building
how
a
to fix
giant
it.
wall that costs $70 billion is taken away from resources that could be used for those things?
No,
It's $70 billion.
we spend money. It doesn't matter.
It does when they have to adjust a budget, when there's a pie that they have to say
Sure.
that this tiny little fraction goes towards our education
But
system.
we figure out
So they're giving me a list.
legalize cannabis.
I'm
There
just
you
saying,
go.
my kid goes to
That
public
pays
school.
for it right there.
My kid goes to public school, and on his list of supplies, there's supplies I have to buy for the teacher. Because they're not staffed, they're not equipped enough to teach the kids. So, there's problems that are here that this money could go towards, is my view on it. There's so many different broken systems here that need our attention instead of a.
What if they reverted it to the states and let the states handle the border walls, like in each state?
I don't think the federal government would even consider that.
Probably not.
One, it deals with the, national security.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying about the money,
That's a lot of money.
It
that
is.
can be
It is a
used
lot of
towards
money.
a lot of good.
But I think if we reformed other areas of, like, welfare, Medicare, all that stuff, then that would free up a lot of money.
Well, if these people were only coming over here for those things, that like a lot of people say they're coming over here for our benefits and for these things, if we eliminated those benefits, then maybe they wouldn't come
Someone
over.
wouldn't come over.
Without the wall. There, we stopped them from coming without even building a wall.
And if we didn't have, under Obama, I feel that they incentivized people to break the law and come into the country illegally, because they had the catch and release policy where if you entered the country illegally and Border Patrol caught you and arrested
that
you.
only came out when Obama was. He's the one who made that happen.
That was his policy, yeah. And so they would catch you and then release you with a court date. They would give you a court date and tell you to come back. And I think it was like 70 or 80% of them never came back, obviously. And so that just invited this huge influx of people to come, because they knew that they were going to get in even if they got caught.
I mean, people are dying. There's 5,000 so people dying a year. I think that's what I read. To get over here, you know, things are so bad there that they're coming. And I don't think something like a catch and release. I think if they're willing to die to come here, then a policy like that is not even in their thought process. You know, we're willing to cross through deserts and through these harsh conditions just for a chance at a better life. You know,
but I think they do that because they know that they're not going to get picked up and sent back. They know that they're going to get through. Because if you knew, or if there was a greater risk of you getting caught at the border and then sent back,
I'm not so sure about the catch and release policy exactly how it works, but I don't remember a time period like that where they didn't deport them. I think that if they caught people that were working and living in America, that they would catch and release them and give them a court date, maybe.
No, that was. I
don't know.
Policy.
Like I said, I'm not for sure on it at all.
I'm fairly certain. That's my understanding of it. I'd have to. I should look into it a little bit more, but that's. I mean, from what I have read about it, that's what the policy was.
These conversations are good for that because we're talking about things and we don't know so much, so we make a note and we go back and look it up.
It makes you reinforce, learn about
right.
Why
like when I leave
here,
I'm gonna look up the catch and release deal.
Yeah. So having that incentive, we gotta, and then
So what should we do to them?
Like the ones we catch coming over illegally.
Should we hang them right at the fence? We should hang them.
Try to vet them and find out who they are, what they've done, if they're good people, if they've never, if they didn't have any issues in their country, then, maybe you should.
So then.
Maybe they should have a place for them to go, where they can, not necessarily like a camp, but a community where they can go and.
Concentration camp.
No, but they, you know what I mean? Like they're not gonna have guards, but they can check in with they have a sponsor. There you go. They could have a sponsor.
I just think that it's so easy for us to talk about this and forget that there's real people, there's real kids, real families that are living in such harsh conditions.
I don't forget that at all. I know. That's why I'm conflicted.
I have 3 children and stuff, and I couldn't imagine trying to pack them up and and drag them through a desert.
Yeah. That's why I'm so conflicted. That's why I think it should the ports of entry and things like that. We need to have more of them, and it needs to be easier for these people who have families and stuff who just want to come here for a better life to get them through the process to get here. I mean, we need to help them become citizens of this country because they're going to be a benefit to this country. And we need that. Like I said, that's what makes America great, is because we have people from everywhere. And Mexico is no different. I think that we need people up here from there, but it has to be done the right way. But we need to fix what way that is.
I just don't know that building a big, huge wall is the answer. I mean,
it might not be.
Do we need a wall to divide us from Canada? Do we need? I just think that we can support our military and we can say that they're going over to these places because they're helping people that need our help. These countries are in desperate need of our help. Well, we have a country right next door, and if we can't connect those two, if we're going to say, I mean, why don't we help these people? I think I've said it a couple times already, but to me, it's like either we want to help people, even if it's not in our country, even if they're not, in American street, or we don't. We can't just say we only want to through military conflict. If we truly want to help people with all the money that's being spent and help,
I don't know why we haven't done something about Mexico yet. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of political reasons that I don't understand.
I mean, how much money has been spent by our government in Iraq? Trying to rebuild the government or rebuild this. How much of our money has been spent there?
Yeah.
Why would we use a big wall all this money to build a big wall to divide us instead of, I don't know. I think it's because they don't have natural resources that we need. They don't.
Yeah. You could very well be right.
Maybe it's because we don't need the military strategic positioning because we're already right next door to them.
Right.
We want a base over here and over here. I wanted to touch back on the border wall for just a second. And we haven't discussed the potential, just the building of it, the physical building of it, the harm that it might have to the wildlife, to the creatures in that area. And also I've read that where it's going to go will actually separate tribes, Indian tribes, that these lands that they've been given,
Okay.
cut them in half, or and I just don't think we think of the physical ramifications of it as much either.
You're right. I honestly had never even thought about that.
And I didn't
That's
until
a
recently,
really good
until I
point.
saw some, and personally, I think we've already done enough to the Native Americans to,
That ain't
sticking
no
them in
shit.
reservations and stuff like
Right.
that. And you look at the pipe, that recent oil that they were going through them, that was
Mm-hmm.
really tragic. And then bringing up separation, that brings to, what do we do with families that are captured? Do we separate mother from daughter, father from son?
Yeah. That I have a lot of mixed feelings about because, I think that we should keep the families together if it's possible, because it's definitely not good to take a kid away from their mom or dad, but at the same time, we have to keep the adults
Accountable and responsible.
somewhere and then we have to keep them somewhere until we can vet them and find out who they are and find out what they're going to do with them, I mean, and by law, you can't keep kids in detention centers, so they can't be in there with their parents, and so the only other option is to let them all go. And if you start doing that, then you're going to have, and again, this isn't going to be all of them, but even one is too many. You'll have people bringing up somebody's kid who isn't theirs, trying to get in as a family, whenever it's not even their kid. And this has happened. I've read reports of this, and in fact, one report I read, they found I think he was 5 years old, a young kid, dead in the desert, that was left there by the coyotes, who were bringing him over. Once they got over, they were done with him, and they didn't need him anymore, and they just left the kid there. And that's happened more than once. I mean, that's multiple situations that's happened in. And
I think that's another way of going to, what comes first, the chicken or the egg. These coyotes, these people are in place because of our
Sure.
system already.
Sure.
If our system wasn't as broken, they wouldn't be,
Right.
families wouldn't be hiring these people to treat them this way.
Sure.
I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely a broken system, and we should work to fix that. But the problem's already here. You know what I mean? Now we have to do something about it. So while we do need to fix the policies and the immigration, we also need to keep that from happening as much as possible.
I just really try to separate my thoughts. I try not to let terminology or things dictate how I feel about people or issues. And when we talk about, before we talked about legal and illegal, or
Yeah.
there's parents over here that are separated from their kids every day.
Yep.
From nonviolent crimes. People that were growing pot in their basement,
Yep.
or people, these different things, and it's like we turn a blind eye to it. But when the media wants to spotlight this group of kids in this area crying for mom, it tears our heart out. And it's like, well, people are doing that all the time here.
Yeah.
For me, I just try to think of people in terms of people no matter what. Like, I don't want to harm a family, if they're not harming me or
Right.
harming, but I think that we let these words or these terms or these imaginary lines in the ground justify the cruel treatment of people.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but I don't think that we treat them cruel, just because we separate them for a couple weeks. It's not like with the people you're talking about that are here that are committing nonviolent crimes, they're separated from their children for years at a time. With the immigration, with people coming over here, they might get separated, but most of the time it's only for a few weeks.
Well, what about
sometimes maybe a month or two?
What about those dreamers? Or are their parents still here, or did the parents get deported and they're still here? I don't know exactly.
I think their parents are still here. It's just for the kids, or or even
Well, if
their
they're
parents
given-
might be dead, or
Because a lot of them are younger, so surely not all their
some
parents
of them,
are
but
dead.
some of them are older. They're in their 30s and 40s. Well, not older, but not a kid. So, But I don't know, man. I just think that something needs to be done, and until our politicians and representatives can start working together, nothing's going to change.
I don't think, a part of me doesn't think it's designed to change. A part of me thinks it's designed to keep us at odds. They always come up with these different topics that are so divisive and so controversial, and as long as we're bitching at each other back and forth, then we're not looking at
Nothing's
who the
ever
real
gonna get done.
Right, and maybe it's not meant to get done. All politicians run on change,
and then they don't do anything.
and then
when they get
everything
into
just
office.
stays the same. That's
I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to that, though, especially after this last election with Donald Trump, that people are actually starting to see that, hey, my vote actually matters, and if I get out and vote, might
but
actually
in
be
your
able to
life,
change
in your
something.
life, how long has Trump been president?
2 years, 2.5 years.
Okay, so in the last 10 years, the first 8 with Obama and the last 2 with Trump, how much has your life really changed?
Not a lot.
I mean, for me, we always talk about this, and when the people got their guy in office, and I'm neither, so whether it's the Democrats that got Obama in, or whether it's the Republicans that felt,
But now
ultimately our life has stayed the same. We keep working more for less.
my parents, on the other hand, small business owners under Obama, it was really tough, and now it's starting to get a lot easier.
I mean, tangibly?
Yes. I mean, yes, we can see a physical difference in the income, and because the taxes we're having to pay now are not as much, and I mean, we can tell a huge difference, and that's, for me, whenever I go to vote, I vote not necessarily for the party, but the person who is going to represent my beliefs the best in office. I mean, that's what I vote for. And I think it's important to vote. I mean, I think it's super important. That's
A different
discussion
topic.
for another
Because we could have really disagreed right there for a second. I was about to start pounding on the table about it.
You about ready to wrap this up?
Yeah,
man?
before I, let out my real name of Jose Lopez.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This has been another episode of Agree to Disagree. Make sure you like and subscribe to our page, and hit the little bell to get notifications for new episodes. Thanks for joining us, everybody.